want every one of you to picture the one slide every leadership team puts up together in a slide deck. Because I would bet everyone have lived through this and has seen that slide. It is the AI adoption dashboard, and that dashboard is green all across the board. The tool is rolled out, the licenses are already bought. Most of the team has logged in this month, and the story everybody tells in the meeting is that the rollout worked. And then suddenly, somebody, usually whoever owns the P&L, will get to ask the only question that actually matters, which is, where is this showing up in the numbers? I think the entire team will go quiet, because nobody has an answer they would say out loud in front of finance. This gap between a team that has clearly adopted something and a team that can actually point to what the adoption is actually worth, this stopped being a feeling already this year, because McKinsey went and measured it across nearly 2,000 organizations. And what they found out about it is a clean picture of reckoning as I have seen anywhere. So let me show you the number everybody is currently putting on a slide. And people are just going crazy and celebrating. The number sitting right next to it almost nobody is asking about. And why the distance between those two numbers is exactly where this channel has always lived. Hey everyone, Petko Petkov here. If you're new to this channel, the short version of what I do is that I spend my time on the gap between AI adoption and AI impact. This is the part where a team is using the tool every day, and the operation underneath still has not moved. Because after 15 years inside enterprise IT, I have witnessed and watched far more projects die on the operations than they ever died on the technology. Okay, let's go back to that number. So here it is. The number that is on every one of those slides right now. 80% of organizations report regular AI use in at least one business function. And this is up from 78% the year before. So this was not a slow creep. Adoption actually accelerated hard in 12 months. And if you stopped reading right there, you would probably walk away thinking the rollout basically worked. Because by the standard of any technology ever pushed into a workforce this fast, 80% regular use is a humongous number. Regular use in one function can be as small as a single team running its drafts through an assistant a few times a week, which is a real number, and also a much lower bar than it actually sounds like on a slide. Now, here is the number sitting right next to it. And this is the one that actually should be leading the slide. 39% of respondents attribute any level of EBIT impact to AI at all. And that word any is carrying almost the whole story there. Because most of that 39% go on to say the impact is under 5% of their organization's EBIT. And 61% simply the arithmetic complement of the 39. They report no EBIT impact from AI whatsoever. So hold both numbers in your head at once. 88% adopted. 61% have nothing to show for it. And it actually gets even sharper the closer you look. Because any impact was always going to be a low bar to clear. So McKinsey also asks who is clearing a bar a CFO would actually respect, which they define as their standard as 5% of EBIT attribution to AI. They call that group the high performance. And this group is about 6% of every organization surveyed. So now, sit that next to the 88% of organizations regularly using AI somewhere in the business, against just 6% who can point to a result large enough that the finance team would call it real. Everyone else in between is just using the tool. They report the usage and still not showing up in the one place the whole exercise was supposed to justify itself. And there is a second figure in that same report that will tell you exactly why this happens. McKinsey also asked how far organizations have actually gotten into scaling AI across the enterprise, not just running a pilot in one corner of it. And about 1/3 have begun to scale it. Just 7% 7% report it is fully scaled. So let's line the three numbers up now. Near universal adoption at the surface. A third of companies partway through actually building it out as a real capability. And a single digit sliver who have finished. That one funnel, not three separate statistics. And almost nobody makes it to the bottom of it. The stall almost always sits in the same place, between a pilot that proves the technology can work and an enterprise rollout that actually changes how the work gets done, which is a harder task and a slower one compared to buying just the licenses in the first place. Okay, so now knowing that funnel exists is not the same as being able to spot it stalling inside your own team. Because no one's dashboard will ever call a stall a stall. It calls itself still ramping. Let me show you exactly what that looks like from the inside, in something that you have probably lived. I want you to picture a mid-size operations team. It doesn't matter what industry. So this team rolls an AI assistant out to everyone who touches a customer case. The adoption looks fantastic inside a month. The whole team logs in, they use it regularly. The usage dashboard is entirely green. And leadership can honestly report that function is regularly using AI. But if you start walking around and ask what changed, ask the actual people, and the use case is gonna move through the same tangle of handoffs it always did. The same person still rekeys the same data into the same second system. Because no one removed that step. They just let people paste AI drafted text into a little faster than before. No one's role changed, and nobody remeasured the cycle time. Nobody actually redrew the process around the tool. They just handed the tool a seat at the old desk. Now, on the contrary, I want you to picture the version that got redesigned instead, where the redundant handoff got deleted outright. The case closes in noticeably fewer steps, and someone can actually show you the before and the after. Same tools, same license cost. The only difference between the two teams is whether the work itself got rebuilt around the AI, or whether the AI just got invited to sit inside work that never moved. Now, seeing the two teams side by side, this definitely needs to tell you something moved and something did not. But it doesn't yet tell you which part of the operation actually made the difference. And this is exactly where most people guess wrong. If you go and ask most leadership teams which layer is failing here, and they would probably guess the model, the training, or probably how carefully the rollout was managed. But the report out arithmetic says otherwise. And this whole season sits on the same 5 layers of AI-ready operations. If this is the first video of mine you have landed on, I want to go through the entire map in just 90 seconds. Governance decides where AI is allowed to make a call, and who owns that decision. Clean data is what the agent is actually reasoning on, and an agent that reasons on a mess will scale the mess. The third one is standardized processes. These are the steps everyone follows the same way, consistent enough that the machine can actually carry them. The fourth one, this is your controls. This is what catches a bad decision quickly instead of months later. And finally, the fifth one is the operating model. This is actually who funds this, who owns it by name, and who keeps it alive once the rollout excitement wears off. Now, adoption, the 88%, mostly measures whether people have access and are locked in, which sits closest to governance and clean data. Did we buy the licenses? Did we point the thing at the data that is good enough to use? Both are real and necessary, but neither one on its own changes a single step of how the work actually gets done, which is exactly why they can be fully funded, while the P&L stays flat. Impact, the 6%, they only show up once two other layers actually move. Standardized processes, because you cannot get a result out of a tool that is bolted onto a process nobody touched. The handoff point needs to be genuinely redrawn, not just typed into faster. And finally, the operating model, because the result that shows up once and belongs to nobody will quietly decay the next quarter, with no one left tracking whether the case count actually dropped. This is the honest reading underneath this whole report. And almost nobody funded the process redesign or the ownership that would have turned that license into a number finance actually believes. Knowing which two layers are stalled is not the same as being able to prove either one moved this quarter. And a logging count will never do that for you. So here is the single test that settles it. The one I called the conversation test. Because this is exactly what it predicts, whether a login ever actually becomes a result. It costs nothing but an afternoon of work, and you can start by Monday. I want you to take the AI use case your team is mostly proud of. The one that shows up green on the adoption dashboard. And please ask him the question this survey is quietly asking every company inside it. What process step got removed because of this? Not sped up, removed. Who owns keeping it working next quarter? By name, not by department. I want you to write that name down on the same page as the use case itself. Because a use case with nobody's name attached to it is not a capability. It's just simply a pilot that it wasn't told it's over. And if someone from finance walked in and asked, what changed in cycle time or headcount because of this tool? Would you be able to actually show them a number? Or would you be just showing them how many people logged in? If your honest answer is that usage went up and nothing downstream actually moved, you haven't found a failure. You have found the exact gap this report just measured. And now you already know which two layers to fix before you fund the next one. Now, let's recap what we talked about just now. Adoption is a headcount number. Impact, on the other hand, is an operating number. Nobody, and I really mean nobody, ever got the second one by growing the first one. Which is exactly why I would push back on the question most companies are still asking, which is some version of how do we get adoption higher. Nothing in this report supports that. The honest first question is whether your standardized processes and your operating model are actually built to convert a login into a result. Because if they're not, higher adoption just means more people using a tool that was never going to move the number. If you want a structured way to check this immediately against your own operations instead of guessing, I built the free AI Ready Operations Assessment for exactly this. It will walk you through those same layers in about 10 or 15 minutes, no more. The link for it is in the description. And if you would rather keep the whole thing on one page, there is a free cheat sheet for this episode at my website. So the next time somebody puts that adoption number on a slide and starts treating it as a win, you do not need to argue with how high it is, because this number was never actually the argument. You can go straight to the rule this whole channel keeps coming back to. Your AI maturity will never exceed your operational maturity. Adoption is the easy layer to move, a licensing decision and a training email. The impact only shows up once, when processes and ownership get rebuilt. And this is not only an enterprise scale problem. Because the same gap will show up anywhere real work gets handed to AI, at any size. A freelancer who adopts an AI tool for every client email, but never redraws how a project actually moves from brief to delivery is sitting inside the same 88%. Because of the exact same reason. Someone running a home budget or a build through AI, drafting every step with it, but never changing what they actually do differently afterward, is in that number too. The scale changes. The gap between using something and changing something because of it does not. There is a lot more sitting inside those two harder layers. The process nobody redrew, and the ownership nobody assigned. And until one of those moves, the next AI initiative your team adopts lands in the same 88% for the exact same reason. This season keeps coming back to exactly that kind of gap. One study and one number at a scale. Subscribe if you want the next one when it lands, because this season is dedicated to operator breakdown, the studies, the numbers, and what they actually change about how you run this. And of course, if you want to go past a single video, the full operator library, the playbooks and the courses is linked below as well. And finally, if you have watched your team's adoption dashboard turn green while the actual cycle time never moved, then please don't be a stranger. Drop me a note in the comments and tell me which layer stalled for you, because I read those and I'll come back to you. And honestly, a good half of what ends up in these episodes started as somebody writing in about their own Tuesday. And this somebody is me. And remember, don't build better AI, build better operations.